Chapter 7. Broken Out. Gus explained his theory to Hank. The mare looked exactly like the woman in the statue, and that was because she was the woman in the statue. She hadn't aged a day since she got trapped in the mud and flood in the cellar. And the chill she sent up his spine, she must be a witch. She'd broken out of the cellar. Hank listened closely. He nodded slowly like it made sense. Of course, he said when Gus was done. I can't believe I didn't think of it before. No old cellar door is going to trap a powerful witch for long. But I bet she hasn't even left City Hall. What about that other woman? Gus said. Why isn't she here to protect us? Hank shook his head. Don't you get it? He asked. She wasn't a witch. She would have died like 150 years ago. He laughed. She'd be as old as Ms. Freckle if she were still alive. They glanced at their teacher. She was standing near Mr. Pommel at the front of the room. He was finishing his speech about early government in Raven's Pass. Even Ms. Freckle looked bored standing there. She checked her watch. Now, Mr. Pommel said, if you'll all follow me, we'll take a look at the records room. I'm sure you'll find it quite fascinating. Hank put up his hand, and Mr. Pommel pointed at him. Yes? Mr. Pommel said. Will we get to meet the mare herself? Hank asked. Gus rolled his eyes and elbowed his friend. What are you doing? Gus snapped. Shh, Hank whispered. I'm just asking. Sheesh. The mayor's office is on the tour today, yes, Mr. Pommel said. Mayor Vertiger is looking forward to meeting all of you children today. She's thrilled that we've opened City Hall to the public. Her office will be your very last stop. As he said the words, your last stop, Mr. Pommel smiled. His toothy grin, it looked too big for his face, gave Gus another shiver. Mr. Pommel must work for her, Hank whispered. And not just as a mayor's assistant either. What do you mean? Gus said. But he had a hunch he already knew. He knows, Hank said. He knows she's a witch. Gus swallowed. And our class, he said, is about to be her first victims in 200 years. Chapter 8. New Plan. We have to get out of here, Gus told Hank. His voice shook. They were in the records room and Mr. Pommel had finished his records room speech. It was mostly about the first citizens of Raven's Pass and how they all died of some horrible disease and how those who hadn't died had fled. The way Mr. Pommel told the story, the mayor had been basically all by herself in Raven's Pass, and due to her hard work, the town survived. Some parts of the story reminded Gus of Hank's creepy tale about Raven's Pass's founding, but Mr. Pommel left out anything about a witch. So where did the rest of us come from? Hank asked. If the witch was the only person here, I mean. Who cares? Gus said, gritting
Who cares?
his teeth.
Gus said, gritting his teeth.
If we stay on this tour, we're doomed.
You're doomed.
Hank's face got serious. What should we do? He finally asked. Gus looked around. The other students all stared at Mr. Pommel as he rambled on. Their mouths hung open. Gus thought a few of them might be sleeping with their eyes open. He didn't blame them. He'd be bored too if it weren't for the witch mirror. He had to figure out what to do. He knew adults were supposed to be the ones you went to in emergencies, but Ms. Freckle would be no help. She was looking down her nose and over her glasses at the class, just waiting for someone to breathe wrong or cough so she could give them detention. Gus and Hank would have to save the day. We have to stop this tour, Gus said. It's not enough for us to escape. If we stop the tour, we'll save the whole class. Okay, Hank said, keeping an eye on Ms. Freckle. How do we do that? Gus looked around the big records room. It was mostly full of tall wooden file cabinets that looked like they'd been built before the Civil War. Then he spotted something that was obviously much newer. A red switch on the wall near the door. The fire alarm. He grinned. Hank followed Gus's gaze with his own. Got it, Hank said. I'll make sure no one notices. You go hit the alarm.
Go hit the alarm.
Hank didn't wait for Gus to reply. He just reached into his pocket and pulled something out. Then he raised his closed fist and heaved the thing, whatever it was, toward the corner of the room. There was a loud pop. Mr. Pommel stopped his speech. The whole class turned to look where the thing had popped. Go! Hank hissed. Gus didn't wait around any longer. He hurried to the door and grabbed the red switch. But as he did, the little stink bomb Hank had thrown began to erupt in green and gray smoke. The room filled with a terrible stink. Gus pulled the handle. The fire alarm blared. Students shrieked. Gus watched Ms. Freckle and Mr. Pommel at the front of the room. His teacher put up her hands and tried to calm the class. Mr. Pommel looked mad. Then he started to look worried. Everyone, please move toward the exit, Ms. Freckle said. Gus was kind of impressed with how calm the teacher was. The students were all panicking. Even Mr. Pommel seemed to panic. Gus watched him from the door as he waited for the rest of the class and Ms. Freckle to leave. Hank stood on the other side of the door, and together they encouraged the rest of the class to stay calm. But Gus also watched Mr. Pommel. He stayed at the back of the records room. Then, when the mayor's assistant thought no one was paying attention, he reached behind one of those old file cabinets and flicked an invisible switch. A short door hidden in the corner swung open. Mr. Pommel ducked inside. The door swung shut, totally silent. Chapter 9. Escape.